Well, I tell you, I was completely unprepared. It just, everything happened so fast. It was so dangerous. I don't know how we could have done any better. As you know, I just recently moved these solar panels up the hill and got 2 more solar panels, and I've been able to make them quite a bit more efficient. So I'm collecting a lot of energy, a lot more energy than I've ever collected out of these solar panels in the past. I bought an extra charge controller. Well, today I actually produced more amps from my solar panels than they're capable of producing. So I have 12 solar panels, all of them are 5 solar panels each. That equals, I've told you in the past though, that if these get hot above 78 degrees, they start to lose voltage. I have never seen my solar panels do very well because in the wintertime, the sun's way down south, so it's got to travel a little bit further, the sunlight does, and it's just more shadowy, and so you just never get to see a lot of voltage in amps in the wintertime. Well, in the summertime, you have the same problem. The sun's way up high in the sky, just beating down on them and just heating them up to no end. I mean, here the last few days, it's been in the hundreds because the solar panels can produce 20 volts. Now, you only need 14.4 volts in the batteries, but you need enough volts in the solar panels to overcome the voltage in the batteries. So in order to get it up to 14.4 volts, you got to have more volts in the solar panels. It's kind of like water pressure. You got to have, if you want to put water into a tank, a pressurized tank, you got to have more pressure in the water than you do in the tank. Same principle when it comes to voltage. On a nice cool day below 78 degrees, you'll see 20 volts. But typically, those are the same days you're not getting a lot of sunlight, so you're not getting a lot of amps. So just to clarify, volts times amps equals watts. So 20 volts times 5 amps, that's what a solar panel is. 20 volts times 5 amps gives you 100 watts. So each panel is 100 watts. Well, today it cooled off. Last night it rained, so we've cooled off quite a bit. Now I think we're supposed to get into the 80s, but all morning we've been in the 70s. And it's been really cloudy this morning. In the morning time, the sun's just coming up over the trees. It's cool. The solar panels are producing 20 volts, but you're not getting a lot of amps because you're at a bad angle. It's coming in at an angle. By the time the sun is above the solar panels, 2 things have happened. It's gotten really hot, and now you're at a good angle, but your batteries are already pretty much charged because of the morning time sun. So in the morning, let's say I have 40 amps coming in because of the angle, and it's not too hot. When the batteries are charged, your amps will drop on your charge controllers because you just don't need to charge your batteries. So by 11 o'clock, batteries are charged. Well, this morning, it was cloudy, so I didn't get that morning time cool temperature charge. Well, about 11:30, the clouds kind of separated, kind of like they were doing now. They're just kind of in and out, but it was still really cool. It was 74 degrees, so it was below the 78 degrees before you start losing voltage. 78 degrees and above, you start to lose voltage. Well, we weren't losing any voltage. The sun came out and I saw 30 plus amps, 31 amps, 32 amps on one charge controller and 32, 33 amps on the other charge controller. That is 60, let's just call it 65 amps. Well, I have 12 solar panels, 5 amps each, it's only 60 amps. How did I get 65 amps? Well, the answer is in the charge controllers themselves. So we'll come inside here. So I have 2 charge controllers. It's a little bit darker, but you should be able to see it. There's one that takes up 6 of my solar panels. And there's the other one that takes up the other 6 of my solar panels. And they both go into one battery bank. So here's my 8 batteries. And you see I got them all tied together. That's positive to positive, 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 negative, negative. So I have about 775 amps of battery. So this morning, I came in and I looked and it said, I don't know, 35 and 33 amps on the charge controllers. Well, The reason is because these MPPT charge controllers convert some of your extra voltage that it doesn't need into amperage. I was getting 20 volts because the batteries were depleted. They needed lots of energy, so it was just taking everything the solar panels could produce. Since I had extra voltage that the batteries didn't need right at the minute, it needed more amps, the charge controller took that 20 volts and reduced it down to, let's say, 17 volts, converted those 3 extra volts into amps, and as a result, I got more amperage out of my solar panels via the charge controller than what the panels could actually produce. Now, I was still probably only getting 100 watts per panel, obviously, but it's just because the charge controller converted. It's the first time I've ever seen that. This is the first time we've had a cool day that the batteries weren't already pretty much charged from the morning time sun. The clouds opened up, shined right down on the solar panels, and boom. I mean, it was neat to see. Now, the reason I bring this up is a lot of people have asked me to continue talking about solar panels and watts, and volts and amps and all that stuff because they seem to be learning. Just got in a comment this morning. A lady got a new, I would imagine, solar generator is what I assume is what it is. And she is sitting here trying to calculate all her wattage. And she was talking about some lights that she had and a fan, and there was something else that she was running. And she was trying to calculate it all out and figure out what was what. And it just sounded so neat. She said, I really wanted to thank you. And I'm learning how all this works. So she asked me to continue to talk about it. And a lot of people have been asking me to talk about it. More and more people are telling me they are going to get solar panels, or they have gotten solar panels, and that's great. I'm kind of the mindset, either go all or none, but that's because I've already went in all. I'm a off-grid purist, let's say. You gotta have the solar panels, but I understand some people just want to have a backup supply. They live in the city, they can't have 12 solar panels, so they need an alternative power supply. Solar generator, although I'm not a big fan of them, and I don't sell them, even though a lot of people ask me to sell them. The reason I'm not a fan of them is because I have my own solar generator. I got solar panels, I got 8 batteries, charge controller, and an inverter. So I don't need to buy one of those so I can have a generator to show off so I can sell and make money off of it. I do appreciate the lady messaging me and telling me how she has learned wattage and using her solar generator. It's great. So please don't be offended that I'm not a fan of solar generators. I have always said in the videos, if you are, that's fine. It's just I'm not. I also got another lady who told me that she bought a generator, the same one that I got here. So I put this one under here. We're not using it too much anymore, so I'm just kind of leaving it underneath there. I got to bend it over to get it out and scoot it back. I changed the oil, and I'm gonna put it away. We're getting enough electricity now from the solar panels that we can run the well off the solar panels. That may change this winter, but I also can run the well off the batteries via the battery chargers, running that little bitty generator that we got, that 1500 watt. But the other day I made a video, and I'll put an up next box at the end of this video to that video about this. I was talking how this is on sale on Amazon for $414. I got this one for over $500. Yeah, it was a real sale, and I was suggesting that if you wanted to get one, now is the time. One lady messaged me and said she ordered one, and it was going to be here Saturday. Well, this is Sunday in this video. I said, awesome, that's great, good news. But she told me that it came in yesterday. So she ran it, tested it out, played with it, and she said, this is the first time in my life I've ever felt energy independent from the energy grid. And I forget what that feeling's like. I mean, I've been off the grid for so long, I don't remember, but it is a good feeling. I do remember it being a good feeling when you finally said, you know what, I don't need these people to take care of me. I can do it myself. Now, I understand that somebody's gonna say, well, it still takes gasoline, that's not really off grid. I don't think that's the point. This thing runs off propane or gasoline. So she can buy some propane canisters, 20-pound canisters, and store them forever. She may never need the generator. If she lives in Florida where there's always hurricanes, I was even talking to Dad the other day, and he was telling me that propane would be the best thing for his hurricane situation. He can store them, buy several of them, store them. Whereas gasoline, it goes bad. You're always having to replace the gasoline, always having to cycle it out. So last night we had a big storm come through, and they gave me about 45 minutes notice. I mean, it just popped up on the radar. It was that quick. And it was hail and wind and the whole thing. And the first thing I thought is, oh my goodness, this thing isn't ready. I've been trying to drive this fence post into the ground so I can strap it down, strap the shed to the fence post. I did that to the truck camper when we moved down here, and it worked like a charm. So I just drove it down to the ground, took a strap, I drove another one down on the other side, threw it over the roof, and I ratcheted it down, and it hasn't budged. Since I couldn't get it driven into the ground because the ground was so hard, it hasn't rained in weeks, a couple months. Grass is all dead. So the only thing I could think to do was I drilled a hole through the frame here, and I fished the strap through. Of course, this is on the other side, so it doesn't actually hook in there. It just kind of pulls up against it. And then I took it to the lawnmower and I tightened it as tight as I could get it. And I figured, well, if it drags the lawnmower, then that wind, probably a tornado strength wind anyways, so nothing I could have done. I don't even think the fence post would have held it down. But it worked. And we had a lot of branches knocked out of the trees, so it was a pretty strong wind. I'm thinking probably about 60-mile-an-hour winds. Now, when I say 60-mile-an-hour winds, we're surrounded by these trees, so we don't actually get the 60-mile-an-hour winds. But then, after I got that done, I went back up to the house, and they said golf ball size hail. So I had to run back down here, and I turned all the solar panels upside down, stacked them up the best I could, and then I put the metal sheets over it. Carolyn came down and helped me with that. By the time we got it done, it was just downpour. It hadn't even started raining when I came down here, and that probably only took 5 minutes. I mean, I was just completely unprepared. Well, I took one of the metal sheets off this little generator to cover up the solar panels, and I realized, oh, the generator's exposed to all the elements. So I came back down here with my raincoat this time, my poncho, and I grabbed the door from the old camper. It's fallen off, and I threw it over there just so I could get some shelter on it in case the hail started beating on that thing and breaking it. I mean, it's just plastic. The top's metal, the gas can, but everything else is plastic. But then, of course, I had to worry about the well. Anytime we get flooding rains, and I bet we got 2 inches of rain in an hour. It was a ton of rain. That means the well is going to take the brunt of that. So this morning, of course, the well was dirty. That water went down into the well, and so you get all that surface water in the well. When Dad was here the other day, we were talking about the well, and I ran the water, put it in a bucket, and I said, boy, it's still kind of dirty. That was the dirty water. Anyway, long story, but I had a bucket of dirty water, and then I ran a bucket of clean water, and I showed him the difference. He says, your water's a lot cleaner, even the dirty water, than his well water. He lives down in Florida, and it's always brown. There's always brown stuff in it. And everybody's well is like that, all over town. Of course, they come around and test it down there in Florida. I remember when we were down in Florida as nomads, one of the campgrounds, it was just brown water. As you can see, even though the water, well, I don't know if you can see it in the camera or not, the water's pretty dirty here, but I got it pretty clean here. Normally what I do is flush it out, but that takes 3 days. I gotta wait 3 days to flush it out because that water's still dripping down there. So Carolyn and I talked, and we're just gonna leave the filters on. Since I talked to Dad about his well, he uses filters on his. We're just gonna leave these filters on it. I've taken them off. It costs money to have filters, and always having to pump this well dry. It takes a lot of energy on me, on the solar panels. The filters last about 3 months, and what I got here is I got a sediment filter and 2 carbon filters. The sediment filters don't cost too much. I change that out every 3 months, and then I just rotate these out. This is the furthest away, so water. So I take that one out and I put it here, and I throw this one away and put in a new one. every 3 months. If there was SHTF, you know, stuff hits the fan, we wouldn't have this option. When we ran out of filters, we'd be done. Still got the Berkey. The Berkey, it clogs up a lot more when the filters aren't on it. But it's just, we'd use the Berkey for drinking water, or boil the water. I mean, it's not disgusting dirty. It's just a little tingy, and I don't like it. So if you click this up next box, take that video where I was talking about that generator. So I hope I can inspire you to get through the tough times when you're living your dreams. Thanks for watching.